I was kidnapped on Christmas 1 year ago today. It's Christmas morning, and I just finished opening up gifts on my mom's side. Because of this, my grandma called me an Uber to head over to my dad's side of the family to open gifts there. And she sent me a screenshot of the information so I knew the license plate, the car model, and the person that I was expecting. She texted me 5 minutes after ordering it and told me that the Uber was downstairs in front of my house. So I say goodbye to my mom and I head downstairs. Right when I walk outside, there is no Uber. I was really confused as I stood outside of my house waiting for the Uber. I was under the impression that maybe it was a bug in the app and the Uber is still arriving, or maybe they were late. I don't know, but I just waited for it to show up, but it never did. And I had noticed that there was this car that was parked to the side of my house, and I had noticed it, but I didn't think anything of it. I certainly didn't think that it would be my Uber, considering the car model wasn't the same, and I was under the impression that the license plate must not be the same either. But as more time passed by, I was like, maybe this is my Uber. And I had pulled out my camera app to zoom into the license because my eyesight is horrible. And I compared it to the license plate that was described on the app, and it was not the same. So I was just like, no, this isn't my Uber. And I continued to wait longer. But then all of a sudden, that same car that I had looked at started beeping. And I was a little confused, but I just assumed they were beeping at someone else until they pulled up to the front of my house and started beeping at me continuously. And I walked down to the driver's side, and this woman pulled down her window and she said my grandma's name. And this woman looked exactly like the photo that was on the Uber app of my driver. So once she said my grandma's name and it looked like the same person, I could only assume that this has to be my Uber driver. But I was still a little caught off guard because it wasn't the same car model and it wasn't the same license plate. And so I got into the car, but once I got in, I kind of felt uneasy. I just didn't feel safe, but there was nothing to prove that. So I kind of was like, whatever, it's fine. I kept telling myself that it was fine, even though I knew it really wasn't. And that uneasy feeling kind of solidified when she locked the window and she locked the car door. This is kind of a normal thing that I've noticed a lot of Uber drivers do. And even though it's normal, in this situation, it didn't feel right with me. And the first thing I do when I get into an Uber is I check on the phone if it says my name. It did. And then I check the map to make sure that this person has the location of where I'm going. But the problem with her is that there was no map showing my location. So clearly she didn't know where she was taking me. And that was another thing that added to this uneasy feeling in the first 10 seconds that I was in this car. So I start looking at her and what she's doing to see if she's going to pull up this map at any point because, we're about to start driving and how is she going to know where she's going if there's no map? So I'm watching her and I see her reach down for something. I assume that it's her phone. No, she pulls up a beer bottle and it's not even full, and she drinks it in front of me. As she starts drinking out of the beer bottle, she's also merging into a lane, and instead of going straight into this lane, she decides to turn the car, go over a curb, and all of a sudden we're in the opposite lane where cars are about to come to us. Inside, I have so much anxiety because I don't drive, but I obviously know that this is not where we're supposed to be. And I start texting my mom, which I'll put up the screenshots of me telling her oh my God, she's drinking. We're not even in the right lane. I'm terrified as I send these texts to my mom that I didn't think I would ever have to send. I was just terrified. And she calls me. And I'm trying to stay calm because I don't want her to know that I'm freaked out, even though I'm freaked out, because I know that she's also drunk. And I don't, drunk people, you don't know what they're capable of, and they're really unpredictable. And in this situation, she's a stranger. I don't know what she could do. I don't know what she even has in this car. So I tell her, this is not the right lane. And she turns up this music and continues drinking, and she keeps driving into the lane. And I tell her again, you need to turn to the right side. And she finally goes over to the right side, over the curb again, and she throws herself into the cars already driving in the correct lane. So this is just like a mess. And if she didn't do it in the moment that she did, like, we probably could have gotten into a car accident, which was already scary enough. And then I had my mom on my phone, like, freaking out, I guess, but she was also trying to be calm because she didn't want to scare me, but I was already scared enough. I'm sorry if this is like a mess. I'm trying to think of it, but in the moment I was so scared that it is a mess in my head. But yeah. So we start driving straight and we are in this like intersection area, and if we keep going straight, there's a highway. But underneath the highway to the side, there's like this little like place you can go to turn the car to go into the other side of the street, because you can't just turn your car across the intersection. Like, it's hard to explain, but it makes sense, I guess, if you were to see it. So where I'm going, you need to go on the highway. But considering she's swerving around and does not know how to drive and she is under the influence, I'm like, no, we cannot take this highway. So I'm kind of freaking out and trying not to cry throughout this entire ride. And I say calmly, because she's asking me where to go. She doesn't know where she's going. She doesn't even know the area or anything at all, or how to drive the freaking car. So she's like, where do I go? And I'm like, I need to go to the easiest place possible. Okay. So the nearest thing to us is like my brother's middle school. So I tell her to go under that path area, under the highway. And this is like a sketchy area. So I was like holding my breath as she was like going down here, because I didn't know if she would think this is an opportunity to do something. And I was just so scared. And I'm a really paranoid person. So, I already was assuming the worst, considering this is already a bad situation. But thankfully, as I was telling her where to go, my mom is still on the phone, by the way. She does follow my instructions, and it's crazy that I'm even having to tell an Uber driver where to go. But I eventually lead her down the road. And the whole time, I'm just praying to God that she'll let me out when it's time to let me out, because the doors are still locked. And I forgot to mention this, but while we were in the wrong lane, I was like ready to jump out of the car, and I was holding onto the handle, but I realized it was locked and I was forced to just deal with the situation. Like, I could not escape. So that's why I was like, that was like in that moment, I decided I was going to be calm, because I had to be. So anyway, I lead her down the road and we're in front of my brother's school. I tell her to go to the side of it, and I'm like, okay, thank you, let me out. And she like hesitates for a moment, and I'm like, open the door. And my mom is still on the phone, and she finally opens the door. I rush out of the car the second she opens the door, and I start bawling my eyes out. I was like holding it in the whole time without even knowing. And once we finally got out, I felt safe enough to just let it out. And I was still on the phone with my mom, and I was just crying to her and telling her everything that I was scared to say in the car. Once I got home, like, my grandma, she like reported this to Uber. And the problem with this is that, all right, this is like the most important part of the story for me. So they tried reporting it, but the problem was the car model and the license plate weren't the same. And that was my initial confusion. So the police were looking for the car that was listed on Uber and didn't have the actual car information, because I couldn't give them the license plate. I didn't know now. And I didn't know the car model. But what's crazy about the situation is, in the beginning of the story, I told you that I had zoomed in on my camera to look into the license plate, and I almost took a photo of it. And if I had taken a photo of it, it would have made it so much more easier for the police. But because I didn't, I think it made it a lot harder. And another thing that's crazy about this story is that there was a situation with this exact same lady this same day. And if that person before me had reported her, then I wouldn't have gotten into this Uber, and this situation would have never happened to me. So those are some interesting things to think about that I still think about. And please be careful when you're getting into Ubers. If you're a woman, even if you're a man, it doesn't matter. But, take safety precautions. Always sit on the side that the Uber is sitting on. Always, keep something with you that you can defend yourself with. Always make sure you're sharing your location with your friends and family. Always tell someone that you're getting into an Uber, and always share your ride with someone so that they can keep track for you and make sure that you get to where you're going safely. Yeah, this was my worst fear. And even though it didn't end up in a kidnapping exactly how the movies show it, this was as close as it could possibly get for me. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed my story time. If you stayed around until the end, you are amazing and I love you.